Sarah Miller, a kindergarten teacher, stood at the imposing gates of Hamilton Estate, clutching her simple purse and the precious invitation inside it. 1 week ago, Ethan found her, her brother. The boy she hadn't seen in 20 years was now a billionaire, and today she was walking into his wedding at his personal palace. Her sensible blue dress, bought on sale last season, was the nicest thing she owned. Her shoes were worn, her purse was old, but there was still something striking about her. Soft features, kind eyes, and a natural elegance no wealth could replicate. The only jewelry she wore was the half-heart locket she never removed. Inside it, a tiny photograph of 2 children, herself and the brother she hadn't seen in 20 years. Security guards examined her invitation with skeptical eyes. "ID?" one asked gruffly. Sarah handed over her driver's license, the address listing her small apartment in a forgettable part of town. After a long pause, they waved her through with obvious reluctance. Near the main staircase, bride-to-be Liz Parker held court with her 3 best friends. Even Sarah could tell that their designer dresses were right from this season's collections. Liz's diamond engagement ring caught the light with every animated gesture, her laugh carrying across the room as she regaled her friends with tales of the luxurious honeymoon to come. "Private island," Sarah overheard. "Ethan's buying it as a wedding gift." Liz looked nothing like the sophisticated heiress she was pretending to be. Despite her expensive clothes and professional makeup, there was something slightly off, something trying too hard. Her friends Tiffany, Amber, and Jessica flanked her, with identical forced smiles, all of them watching the wealthier guests with hungry eyes. Victoria Pierce, the wedding planner, bustled around with a tablet, her sharp gaze missing nothing. Her focus kept returning to the main entrance, clearly anxious about the groom's continued absence. "He's been delayed," she kept repeating to inquiring guests. "Emergency board meeting, arriving shortly for the ceremony." Sarah found a quiet spot near a window, trying to make herself invisible while gathering courage for when Ethan finally arrived. She had so many questions. Why now, after all these years? Did he know who she was? Was this some cruel prank? The invitation had been real enough to get her through security, but the note had been so cryptic. She touched the locket at her throat, drawing strength from the connection to her past. Whatever happened next, she was finally here, on the verge of finding her brother again. From her corner, Sarah noticed the string quartet struggling with a particularly difficult passage. The first violinist kept missing the same transition, causing the cellist to grimace each time. Several guests were beginning to notice, exchanging glances and whispers. Victoria Pierce's expression grew increasingly panicked as she watched important early arrivals becoming irritated. When the violinist stepped aside to adjust his strings, Sarah acted on instinct. 20 years of playing whenever she could afford lessons or find free practice time took over. She approached quietly. "May I?" she asked softly, gesturing to the violin. The musician, desperate for a moment to fix his instrument, nodded. Sarah lifted the violin, testing its weight, so much finer than the second-hand one she treasured at home. She began to play the troublesome passage, her fingers finding the notes effortlessly. The other musicians exchanged surprised glances before joining her, the music suddenly flowing seamlessly. Sarah closed her eyes, losing herself in the music as she always did. For a moment, she forgot where she was, forgot her anxiety, forgot everything except the feeling of creating something beautiful. The quartet followed her lead through the entire piece, performing better than they had all day. When they finished, spontaneous applause broke out from the nearby guests. Sarah blushed, quickly handing the violin back to its rightful owner. "Where did you study?" the cellist whispered, impressed. Before Sarah could answer, a sharp voice cut through the moment. What exactly is happening here? Liz Parker stood at the edge of the small crowd, her expression thunderous. Her three friends formed a semicircle behind her, like a ready-made Greek chorus. "Who authorized you to touch the instruments?" Liz demanded, looking Sarah up and down, with undisguised contempt. "I was just helping," Sarah explained quietly. "The violin needed—" "She's probably with the catering staff," Tiffany stage whispered to Amber. "Trying to get noticed, or hoping for bigger tips," Jessica added with a smirk. Victoria Pierce hurried over, tablet clutched to her chest. "Is everything all right, Miss Parker?" "No, it isn't," Liz snapped. "Your staff is overstepping. This person," she gestured dismissively at Sarah, "decided to put on a little performance." "I'm not staff," Sarah explained, trying to maintain her dignity. "I'm a guest. I have an invitation." Skeptical gazes raked over her simple dress and unadorned appearance. Victoria checked her tablet. "Your name, please?" "Sarah Miller." After several seconds of scrolling, Victoria's eyebrows rose slightly. "You're on the list. No +1. General seating." Her tone suggested this was barely a step above serving the canapes. "Well, whoever you are," Liz said with a brittle smile, "please remember that this is my wedding. I won't have random guests stealing focus from what should be my perfect day." As they walked away, Sarah clearly heard Jessica say, "Did you see her shoes?" "Definitely bought those at a department store." Sarah retreated to her corner, cheeks burning. She might have made a terrible mistake coming here, but her brother's invitation and the ache of 20 years of separation kept her rooted in place. The grand entrance hall had grown crowded as more guests arrived for the ceremony. The doors to the garden, where the wedding would take place, remained closed while final preparations continued. Guests mingled, the volume of conversation rising, as more champagne flowed. Suddenly a commotion erupted near the refreshment table. An elderly man in an expensive suit staggered, clutching his chest. His glass shattered on the marble floor as he collapsed into a nearby chair, gasping for breath. "Someone help!" his wife cried, panic in her voice. Guests backed away, uncertain what to do. Victoria Pierce froze mid-sentence in her conversation, horror washing over her face at this deviation from her meticulously planned schedule. From across the room, Sarah heard the commotion and rushed over without hesitation. Years of managing classroom emergencies and mandatory first aid training kicked in automatically. "I'm a teacher," she explained, kneeling beside the elderly man. "Sir, can you tell me what you're feeling?" Between labored breaths, he described pressure in his chest and pain radiating down his left arm. Sarah recognized the symptoms immediately. "Does anyone have aspirin?" she called out. When a guest produced a bottle from her purse, Sarah helped the man take it. "We need to call an ambulance right away." "Already did," Victoria said, recovering her composure. "Security says it will take at least 15 minutes to get through the main gate and up the drive." Sarah nodded, keeping her focus on the patient. She loosened his tie and collar, instructed his wife to hold his hand, and monitored his breathing while keeping him calm with quiet, assured conversation. "You're going to be fine, Mr. Henderson," his wife supplied. "Walter Henderson. He's Ethan's mentor and investor." "You're in good hands, Mr. Henderson," Sarah continued. "Just focus on breathing slowly for me." From the edge of the concerned circle, Liz watched with growing irritation. "Can't they move him somewhere less visible?" she hissed to Victoria. "Guests for the ceremony are arriving." The wedding planner looked scandalized. "Ms. Parker, the man may be having a heart attack." "Well, it's ruining the ambiance," Liz muttered. Sarah ignored the exchange, focusing entirely on Mr. Henderson until paramedics finally arrived. As they took over his care, Mrs. Henderson gripped Sarah's hand tightly. "You're an angel," the older woman said tearfully. "Without you, I don't know what would have happened." As Sarah stepped back to let the medical professionals work, she found herself surrounded by Liz and her friends. "Who exactly are you?" Liz demanded, eyes narrowed suspiciously. "I told you, my name is Sarah Miller. I'm here to see Ethan." "Everyone here is seeing Ethan," Tiffany scoffed. "He's the groom." "How do you know him?" Liz pressed, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her palms. "Ex-girlfriend? College classmate? Charity case?" "We're connected," Sarah answered carefully, unsure how much Ethan had shared with his fiancée. "He invited me personally." "Ethan wouldn't invite someone without telling me," Liz insisted, her voice rising slightly. "Especially not someone so ordinary." As Sarah shifted uncomfortably under their scrutiny, her locket slipped out from beneath her collar, catching the light. Liz's eyes fixed on it, recognition flashing across her face. "Where did you get that?" she demanded, pointing at the half-heart pendant. Before Sarah could answer, Victoria interrupted. "Ms. Parker, it's time to prepare for the ceremony. The groom's car has just passed through the main gate." Liz hesitated, looking from Sarah to the entrance doors, calculation evident in her expression. "Watch her," she instructed her friends, before hurrying away with Victoria. Tiffany, Amber and Jessica formed a tight circle around Sarah, their smiles not reaching their eyes. "So," Amber said sweetly, "why don't you tell us the real reason you're crashing this wedding?" As guests began moving toward the garden doors for the ceremony, Sarah tried to follow, but found herself blocked by Liz's friends. "Not so fast," Jessica said, gripping Sarah's arm. "Liz wants a word with you first." They steered her away from the crowd, through a side door that led to a secluded portion of the garden, hidden by tall hedges. A decorative pond with water lilies dominated the small courtyard, surrounded by white rose bushes prepared for the wedding. Liz was waiting, already in her wedding gown, a confection of lace and crystals that probably cost more than Sarah's car. Her expression was no longer maintaining any pretense of civility. "You have exactly 10 seconds to explain why you're wearing that locket and what you're really doing here," she snapped. Sarah's hand went instinctively to the pendant. "It's a family heirloom. I've had it since childhood." "Liar," Liz hissed. "Ethan has the exact same pendant. He never takes it off, says it's the only thing he has from his birth family." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you, some obsessed fan who had a copy made? A gold digger trying to create a fake connection?" "I'm not lying," Sarah insisted, reaching for her purse. "I have photos." Liz snatched the bag from her hands, dumping the contents onto the ground. Sarah's wallet, keys, and the precious old photographs scattered across the flagstones. Liz scooped up the photos, examining them with growing fury. "These are obviously manipulated," she snarled, ripping them in half. "Did you think you could convince Ethan you're some long-lost relative? Get a piece of his fortune." "They're real," Sarah said, voice breaking as she watched her precious photos destroyed. "Ethan is my brother. We were separated when our parents died. I've been looking for him for 20 years. A sob story, too. "How convenient," Tiffany mocked. "What was your plan?" Liz demanded. "Wait until the middle of the ceremony to make your big announcement? Ruin my perfect day with your pathetic scam?" "No, I just wanted to see him. The invitation." "Invitation?" Liz laughed coldly. "You mean this obvious forgery?" She held up the cream-colored card from Sarah's purse, tearing it to pieces. "Security will be checking for your fake ID next." In a swift motion, Liz reached out and yanked the locket from Sarah's neck, breaking the chain. "And I'll be taking this counterfeit trash." "Please," Sarah begged, tears filling her eyes. "That's all I have left of my family." "You have no family here," Liz sneered. "Just another pathetic nobody trying to attach herself to greatness." She nodded to her friends. "Get her out of my sight." Before Sarah could react, Tiffany and Amber pushed her backward. She lost her balance, falling into the shallow, decorative pond with a splash. Cold water soaked through her only good dress as the women laughed. "Perfect place for trash," Jessica commented, taking photos with her phone. "Wait until everyone sees the crazy wedding crasher." "Security!" Liz called, her voice suddenly theatrical as guests nearby turned to look. "This woman tried to attack me. She's delusional, claiming to be related to my fiancé." 2 security guards hurried over, pulling a soaking wet Sarah from the pond. Mud and lily pads clung to her clothes, her hair plastered to her face, tears, indistinguishable from pond water on her cheeks. "Please," she said to the guards, "just let me see Ethan. He invited me." "Save your crazy stories," Liz interrupted. "Take her to the service entrance and make sure she doesn't come back." As the guards began leading Sarah away, a commanding voice cut through the commotion. "What the hell is going on here?" Ethan Hamilton stood at the garden entrance, still in his business suit rather than wedding attire, his expression shifting from confusion to horror as he took in the scene. "Ethan, darling." Liz's voice transformed instantly to honeyed sweetness. "Thank goodness you're here. This disturbed woman crashed our wedding. Security is handling it." Ethan barely glanced at his bride. His eyes were fixed on Sarah's face, recognition and shock warring in his expression. "Sarah?" he whispered, stepping forward. "Is it really you?" The security guards hesitated, looking between Ethan and Liz in confusion. "You know this woman, sir?" one asked. "Know her?" Ethan's voice broke. "She's my sister." Complete silence fell over the garden. Liz's face drained of color. "That's impossible," she stammered. "You said your sister was lost." "I found her last week," Ethan said, still staring at Sarah. "After 20 years of searching, private investigators finally located her teaching kindergarten 200 miles from here." He finally turned to Liz, noticing the locket clutched in her hand. "What have you done?" "I thought she was lying," Liz said desperately. "Trying to scam you, so you assaulted her, destroyed her property." Ethan took the locket from Liz's unresisting fingers, then reached inside his shirt to pull out his own half-heart pendant. The 2 pieces fit together perfectly. "Let her go," he ordered the guards, who immediately released Sarah's arms. Ethan shrugged off his suit jacket, wrapping it around his sister's wet shoulders. "Are you all right?" Sarah nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Ethan turned back to Liz, his expression hardening. "I invited my sister to share what should have been the happiest day of my life. I planned to announce our reunion during the reception." His voice grew icier with each word. "Instead, I find her soaking wet, her possessions destroyed, treated like a criminal by my fiancé." "Ethan, I can explain," Liz pleaded, suddenly aware of the gathering crowd of wedding guests. "It was a misunderstanding." "It was all Liz's idea," Tiffany blurted, stepping away from her friend. "We just went along with it." "Throw her in the pond, those were your exact words," Amber added quickly, distancing herself. Liz shot them a venomous glare before turning back to Ethan, tears welling in her perfectly made-up eyes. "Baby, please, I was just protecting our special day. This sister thing, we can deal with it tomorrow. The guests are waiting. The minister—" "There will be no wedding today," Ethan announced, his arm still protective around Sarah's shoulders. "You can't do this to me." Liz's sweet facade crumbled completely. "Do you have any idea how hard I've worked? How much planning it took to land you?" A murmur rippled through the watching guests. "Land me?" Ethan repeated quietly. You know what I mean, Liz backpedaled frantically. To plan this wedding, to create the perfect day. No, I think you said exactly what you meant. Ethan's expression was cold. Thank you for showing me who you really are before it was too late. He turned to the gathered guests. I apologize for the inconvenience, but today's ceremony is cancelled. However, I invite you all to stay and celebrate a different occasion, my reunion with my sister Sarah after 20 years apart. As Liz stood frozen in shock and humiliation, Ethan guided Sarah toward the house. Come on, he said gently. Let's get you some dry clothes, and then we have 20 years to catch up on. The grand ballroom, decorated for a wedding reception, that would never happen, became the setting for a different celebration. Ethan and Sarah sat together at what should have been the head table, 20 years of separation dissolving as they shared stories of their lives. I searched for you, Sarah explained, now dressed in borrowed clothes, her locket restored to its rightful place. For years, but when our parents died, you were adopted by the Hamiltons, and I went into the foster system. Your name change made it impossible to find you. I hired investigators, Ethan admitted, but they always hit dead ends. Then last week, facial recognition software I developed for my company found a match. A local newspaper article about an elementary school teacher who saved a child from choking. Your face has barely changed. Across the room, Liz's friends huddled in a corner, shooting nervous glances their way. Victoria Pierce was professionally managing the transition from wedding to family reunion, though her tight smile betrayed her stress. Of Liz herself, there was no sign. She had left in a rage when the last of her bridesmaids abandoned her, publicly declaring they had no idea she was that kind of person. Mrs. Henderson, who had returned from the hospital where her husband was resting comfortably, stopped by their table. Walter's going to be fine, thanks to your sister, she told Ethan. The doctor said her quick action probably saved him from a major heart attack. I'm not surprised, Ethan said, smiling at Sarah. She always looked out for everyone, even when we were kids. As evening fell, the guests gradually departed, many stopping to express their good wishes to the reunited siblings. When they were finally alone in the quiet ballroom, Sarah turned to her brother. What happens now? She asked softly. Now we make up for lost time, Ethan said, reaching for her hand. My company, my home, everything I've built. It never felt complete. Now I know why. Sarah smiled, touching her locket that once again formed a perfect whole when joined with her brother's. I never needed your wealth, she said. Just my brother back. Well, you've got both now, Ethan replied. And I was thinking, that school where you teach could probably use a new building and some technology upgrades. Sarah laughed, the sound echoing in the empty ballroom. Some things never change. You always did try to fix everything. Not everything, Ethan said, suddenly serious. I couldn't fix what mattered most, our family being torn apart, until today. Outside the windows of Hamilton Estate, the sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and promise. Inside, two halves of a broken family became whole again, proving that some bonds can survive even 20 years of separation, and that true worth has nothing to do with wealth or status, but everything to do with the heart. In the end, what should have been a day celebrating a hollow union based on greed and pretense became instead a celebration of the most genuine connection of all, the unbreakable bond between siblings who had finally found their way home to each other.